The auto market's showing signs of crumbling. Now, what you see on the screen here is the success of most of these automakers in the month of July. Sales are up. They're looking good across the board, especially Toyota's 22% rise, Hyundai up 15%. Mazda up 13%. Honda seeing some big slowing though, despite them being up. If we look at most of the competition and Acura especially being down, there's some red flags. And the red flags have just been confirmed. Mazda's blaming their $319 million loss, their operating loss in Q1 2025 on tariffs. Prices are about to go up. If you're new to the channel, my name's Kirk. I cover auto news every single day. I just posted a review on the new Hyundai Palisade this morning. Check it out. I think it very well could be a better luxury three-row SUV than the Lexus TX, Acura MDX, the Infiniti QX60. It's really, really good. And I haven't even driven the hybrid variant yet. Also, I'll do a follow-up video on Hyundai soon, maybe even today, because if we go back to here, Hyundai broke an all-time July sales record. I kind of want to dig out why Hyundai and Kia are so successful right now, which models are carrying the brand. But going back to Mazda, they've also announced their full-year earnings forecast. They're still expecting net profit to be around 20 billion yen. What is that in dollars? That looks to be around 135 million US dollars. That's down 82.5% from the 2025 fiscal year. So the 27.5% import tariff is still in effect, and we'll get into what's going on as a result here in a little bit after we go over Mazda. We'll actually talk about Nissan as well, just briefly. But Mazda's putting out some fires through activities such as switching export destinations from the United States to other countries. That was my estimation as well as what they were doing as I looked at their sales. And we'll get into it in a little bit. But they're strengthening sales of profitable vehicles. A tariff burden of around 50 billion yen cannot be overcome. And Mazda is considering raising prices in the US, as of course its competitors are doing. Mazda is expecting the tariffs will come to 233 billion yen for its full financial year of March 2026. But they can offset more than 60% of that cost, that tariff cost, by further reducing costs and strengthening local production. Well, here's the problem. They only have the CX-50 production in the United States. And we'll get into why Mexico is not what it needs to be for Mazda right now. Masahiro Moro, the CEO of Mazda, says North America is the most important market for us. The agreement between Japan and the U.S. to set import tariff rate on automobiles at 15% has big significance. Since we're bringing that up, we're going to hop on over to this right here. The trade ambassador for Japan, Akazawa-san, is visiting Washington because the 15% import tariffs have not been implemented yet. The duties on other Japanese goods are going into effect to 15% on Thursday, but automobiles have not been signed into effect. And there could be additional stacking on parts and other things that the EU is not receiving stacking tariffs. They just get a flat rate of 15% of cars that come in the United States. Japan is supposed to receive that, but they haven't had anything in writing from the United States. And again, they're still paying 27.5% tariffs until Trump signs an executive order to put in the 15% tariffs. It's crazy how it's not put into effect yet. April through June, Mazda sold 301,000 vehicles worldwide. That's down 2% in the US. You might be saying, Kirk, didn't you just say that they were up? Yeah, they were up for the month of July. That's technically the next quarter. That's start of Q2. So among Japanese automakers, Mazda is particularly vulnerable to tariffs. Yes, they are. So is Subaru. I think Subaru is not quite as affected as they are because they make quite a few vehicles at the Indiana plant. Mitsubishi is the most vulnerable. They make all their vehicles in Japan. But Mazda relies on exports from their plants in Japan and Mexico, and the number of vehicles exported from Japan to North America decreased 13.2% to just 26,000 vehicles in June. And what's crazy is Mazda had a record high sales last year in the United States, all time, 435,000. They're only expecting 400,000 sales in 2026 calendar year. They're saying that the profitability of the Mexican-made Mazda 3 and CX-30, for example, is very, very poor because of the tariff situation. They are intentionally adjusting shipments from Mexico to the U.S., which is going to affect their annual sales figures. And we're seeing evidence of this. This was my guess until we just heard it today. My guess is why the CX-30 was down 50% and why the Mazda 3 was down 50% on the month of July was because of tariffs. They're not shipping these vehicles to the United States. They're shipping them elsewhere. And of course, we're seeing huge setbacks in Western Japan around Hiroshima, Yamaguchi prefectures because the tariffs are biting into the profitability. I'm hearing a lot of these workers are not getting overtime. If they're not getting overtime, that affects their discretionary income, and that affects all the businesses in that area. From Mazda to Nissan, Nissan's a much bigger company than Mazda, and Nissan had a $547 million quarterly loss, about double of what Mazda's was, of course. Nissan has a lot more production in the United States. They have 2 plants. They're both underutilized. For now, anyways. They will further utilize those plants in Smyrna, Tennessee, and Canton, Mississippi, where they build many vehicles. But Nissan also brings in a ton of vehicles from Mexico. They're actually closing 2 plants in Mexico in the near future. The original plant outside of Japan, the first plant ever outside of Japan, was a CVOC plant in Mexico. They're closing that this year. They're also closing the plant, is it Aguas Calientes, where they also have a joint plant with Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes builds the GLB there. Infiniti builds the QX50. Both of those vehicles, as far as I'm aware, being scrapped for the respective brands. And Nissan still builds the Sentra down there and the Versa and the Kicks. And so all those vehicles, just like Mazda, it's going to eat into their profits. But Nissan also sends quite a few vehicles from Japan, namely the Z and the Armada. And so they're just, I don't even know what, I don't even want to get into Nissan right here because it's ugly. Volvo starting to see a bigger turn down as well. Their global sales in July was down 14% versus the same period last year. At least Mazda sales were up. They just had to shift from, CX-30, Mazda 3 and sell more CX-50s and CX-5s, for example. But this is really, really bad. Look at the fully electric models for Volvo. And I'm getting the XC90 today, the fully electric 3-row SUV. I haven't driven it yet. So if you are excited for it, make sure to stay subscribed and stay glued to the channel. I will get some reviews on it this week, but they thought they were going to be fully electric by 2030 or something, maybe even faster. No, I think it's Genesis. They said 2026 or something. That's laughable at this point. But Volvo is going back on their fully electric deadlines. They just don't know when they'll be fully electric. And look, the demand for it is a joke. Electrified models, even their plug-in hybrids are down, and their plug-in hybrids are really, really good. And their electric vehicles are okay, but they're nothing special. And they're really expensive. Mild hybrids, even those are down 8%. Yikes. Volvo just getting crushed right now. XC60 was a top-selling model, then followed by the XC40 and then the XC90. And again, Volvo's big issue is that they have a plant in the United States, but they're building like the 2 least desirable vehicles that can be built out there. The EX90 that I'm driving this week, as well as the Polestar 3, which who's buying Polestars right now? That brand has no longevity to it, in my opinion. There's no need for it to exist when it's, a slightly higher performance EV division of Volvo. I know they don't share that much identity anymore like they used to. but they're both owned by Geely, so there's not that much that differentiates them. That's all I have for you guys. Stay tuned for my breakdown of Hyundai sales, what's going to be exciting for them, what's dragging them down potentially, despite their sales being up overall. Have a great day, guys. Is Mazda in trouble? Is all the Japanese automakers in trouble? I think every single manufacturer is screwed in the near term. I have no other nice way to put it. All of them are bleeding money due to tariffs right now until they figure out ways to put out the fires that these have caused. You know, the reduction from 27.5% tariffs to 15%, that's going to happen from cars from the EU and cars from Japan. Cars from Korea are also hit with a 15%. If the manufacturers can't find ways to reduce costs internally, then they have to increase costs to the customers. And the car market's already too overpriced. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Peace.